Rohan was a boy who loved adventures. At 13 he was always curious, so when his school announced a camping trip to the woods, Rohan was thrilled. He packed his bag carefully, making sure he had his compass and a torch. He was excited to sleep under the stars and explore the forest trails. The day arrived, and Rohan boarded the bus with his classmates, his heart buzzing with anticipation. The bus journey was long, but Rohan didn't mind. He spent the time chatting with his friends, playing games, and imagining all the wonders that awaited them in the forest. He pictured towering trees, chattering squirrels, and maybe even a deer peeking from behind the bushes. As the bus rumbled closer to their destination, the scenery outside began to change. Gone were the busy city streets, replaced by rolling hills and lush greenery. Finally, the bus pulled into a clearing and Rohan could barely contain his excitement. He was ready for an adventure. Stepping off the bus, Rohan was greeted by the crisp, clean air of the forest. The air smelled different here, sweet and earthy. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dancing shadows on the forest floor. The trees stood tall and proud, their branches reaching towards the sky like long, welcoming arms. Rohan felt a sense of peace wash over him. It was like stepping into a magical world, far away from the noise and chaos of the city. His classmates were equally mesmerized. They followed their teachers deeper into the woods, their voices hushed in awe. Soon, they reached a clearing perfect for setting up camp. Everyone sprang into action, working together to pitch tents and gather firewood. Rohan helped his friends unroll sleeping bags and hang lanterns. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a campfire crackled to life. The campers gathered around, sharing stories and laughter. The forest felt alive with magic, and Rohan was completely captivated. After dinner, as the other campers settled around the campfire for a sing-along, Rohan's attention was caught by a flash of blue. A butterfly, its wings a vibrant azure unlike anything he'd seen before, flitted past, alighting on a fern nearby. Entranced, Rohan crept closer, desperate for a better look. He edged away from the firelight, following the butterfly deeper and deeper into the woods. The further he went, the fainter the sounds of the campfire and his classmates' laughter became. Yet Rohan was too captivated by the butterfly to notice. It led him on a merry chase, flitting from one tree to another, its wings like flashes of blue lightning against the darkening forest. He didn't even realize he was alone until the butterfly finally disappeared into the undergrowth, and he was plunged into an eerie silence. Panic seized Rohan. He looked around, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The trees, which had seemed so welcoming before, now loomed over him, their branches like grasping claws. The shadows grew longer and darker, twisting into menacing shapes. Every rustle of leaves, every hoot of an owl, sent shivers down his spine. He called out for his friends, his voice trembling, but the only answer was the echo of his own fear. He tried to retrace his steps, desperately searching for a familiar landmark, but the forest seemed to have transformed into a labyrinth. Fear, cold and clammy, threatened to engulf him. He wanted to cry, to scream, to give in to the panic surging through him, but a memory flickered through his mind. His father's calm voice saying, "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Rohan. It's knowing that something else matters more." He clung to those words like a lifeline. He wouldn't give up. He had to be strong. Taking a deep breath, Rohan tried to calm himself. He remembered another piece of advice his father, an experienced hiker, had given him. "If you're ever lost, Rohan, find a stream. It will always lead you back to civilization." With renewed determination, Rohan scanned his surroundings. The forest was denser now, the air thick with the smell of damp earth. He listened intently, hoping to hear the gurgling of water. He started walking again, this time more cautiously, pushing aside branches and stepping over gnarled roots. He picked up a sharp stone, just in case he needed to defend himself against any wild animals. As darkness deepened, he hugged his arms around himself, shivering not just from the cold, but from fear. He wished he hadn't wandered so far. He wished he had stayed close to the campsite, but wishing wouldn't help him now. He had to keep moving. Rohan walked for what felt like hours. The forest was dark, the moonlight barely penetrating the dense canopy of leaves overhead. He stumbled often, his clothes torn by thorns, his hands scratched. He was tired, hungry, and terribly thirsty. Just when his hope began to dwindle, he heard it. A faint gurgling sound. His heart leaped. A stream. He quickened his pace, pushing through thick undergrowth until he reached a small clearing. A narrow stream, its surface shimmering under the moonlight, snaked its way through the trees. With a gasp of relief, Rohan sank to his knees on the bank, cupping his hand and drinking deeply from the cool, refreshing water. He had never tasted anything so good. As he sat by the stream, catching his breath, Rohan noticed something in the distance. A faint orange glow flickered between the trees, growing brighter as he watched. Hope surged through him like a jolt of electricity. Could it be the campfire? He scrambled to his feet and started running, his legs aching, his lungs burning, but he didn't stop. He ran towards the light, calling out for help, his voice hoarse but determined. As he drew closer, he could hear the crackling of flames and voices. Emerging from the trees, he found himself at the edge of the clearing where the campsite was located. The campfire burned brightly, casting a warm glow on the faces of his classmates and teachers. Rohan! A collective gasp went up as he stumbled into the circle of firelight. His friends rushed towards him, their faces etched with worry and relief. He was engulfed in hugs, everyone talking at once, asking if he was all right. Mrs. Sharma, his teacher, knelt before him, checking him for injuries. Her voice, usually firm, trembled with concern as she spoke. "Rohan, where were you? We were so worried." Rohan, exhausted but safe, recounted his adventure, his voice shaky at first, then gaining confidence as he described his ordeal, and how he had used his father's advice to find his way back. When he finished, a wave of silence fell over the group. He braced himself for a scolding, but instead, Mrs. Sharma simply smiled and said, "Rohan, you showed great courage and resourcefulness. We're all very proud of you." That night, tucked snugly in his sleeping bag, listening to the comforting crackle of the fire and the gentle snores of his friends, Rohan realized the true value of his adventure. He had faced his fear and overcome it. He had used his knowledge and kept a cool head in a difficult situation. But most importantly, he had gained a newfound respect for the power and unpredictability of nature. He vowed to always remember the lessons he had learned in the forest. He realized that adventures could be exciting, but they also demanded caution and respect for the environment. As he drifted off to sleep, the image of the blue butterfly, the fear he had conquered, and the relief of seeing the campfire would forever remain etched in his memory. He knew, with a certainty that warmed him from the inside out, that he would carry these lessons with him, always.